What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing you the latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. It's been 3 weeks since my last video, which was my song about Dwight Howard, which I want to thank you guys for listening to and listening to a lot. I believe last time I checked, I was at 59 views, which is a NetsBoy record. It's more views than any of my other videos. So once again, I thank you. Though I do think like 20 of those 59 was my views from myself, because I like to toot my own horn and I think I'm the greatest thing in the world. Hence why I make videos about basketball that I talk to about 5 to 10 people, really. Because I think I'm the coolest and the greatest thing ever. But, yeah, that was 3 weeks ago. And now this is my latest video, which I was not sure when I was going to actually do it, because I've been a little busy, and I've just been so busy. As you can see, I lost my sunglasses again, and I don't know where they are. Hopefully I'll be able to find them, but you know, I have the hat and the light coming this way, so you can still not really see my face, as if you didn't know what I looked like already. Anyway, so this is my latest video now, and what it is right now is the preseason is about to come to an end. Finally. It's the end of October, the Nets have wrapped up their preseason, and here they are, 3 days or 4 days away from their opening tip-off against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I'm super pumped. And just a few little notes that I want to talk about from the preseason. First thing is, the Nets looked very sharp in the preseason. They went 5-2, including 2 ass-kicking wins over the Miami Heat, even though it was preseason, so it's not like, yeah, whatever, but still, that's pretty awesome. And they looked really sharp out there. You know, Lopez looked good. Paul Pierce and Garnett and those guys, you know, they look like themselves. The old Celtics looked fine. You know, Andre Kirilenko is awesome. I love everything he does. Sean Livingston shocked me as he played very well. Mirza Teletovic had some big shots and hit some big threes. He's somebody that's not even going to be in the rotation, but he was also pretty effective out there. Blatch was good. Plumlee was solid. Really, it looked pretty good out there. You know, like I said, they went 5-2, and they looked sharp, and it looks like there will be a learning curve for this team, but I think they're going to hit it. You know, they've got a lot of weapons. But there was one thing that I did see, and it was the thing I talked about. It was my biggest fear, and that was Joe Johnson kind of fading out. And I said this was going to happen. I said with Paul Pierce on the team being basically the same type of player as Joe Johnson, but he's more assertive, so Joe Johnson's going to fade out. And that's what really happened. You know, Joe Johnson took some shots, and he makes some shots, but he only had like four or five shots a game, and most of them are three-pointers when he's open. You know, he's not as aggressive. He's not taking the ball to the basket, because Paul Pierce is kind of doing that for him. You know, and that's what I said. I said it with my, you know, talk about the offseason so far, like the second episode of NetsBoy. I just don't like the two of them together on the court at the same time. They're the same type of player, and you know, not that it's really going to hurt the Nets, but I don't think it's going to benefit them. You know, I don't think it's going to hurt them having them both out on the floor, but I don't think it's going to benefit them. You know, it's almost like it's better to have like a 3-shooting defensive player as the starting 2 guard than Joe Johnson, because really Joe Johnson is just kind of becoming now a spot up 3-shooter. You know what I mean? Like when dribble penetration kick out to him, because he's shooting mostly threes, and he's not a good enough defender where I like him as the starting 2. You know, I would have, you know, maybe I like to see. I can't believe I'm saying this as a Nets fan. I wouldn't mind seeing Courtney Lee in that, you know, spot there. You know, a defensive, very defensive, grindy, you know, 2 guard who just basically can shoot the 3, and that's all he really does on the offensive end. I think that would work well. At least help the Nets more than what they have now. But like I said, it's not like having Joe Johnson on the court is going to hurt them with Paul Pierce. It's not. I just think that there's a better fit player than Joe Johnson and Paul Pierce together. I really do. Like I said before, I would have actually liked to see Gerald Wallace stay on with the Nets, and then have Gerald Wallace and Joe Johnson, or Gerald Wallace and Paul Pierce, whichever could have worked out. Because I think that would have been better. Because Gerald Wallace's toughness and energy, and doesn't need to score, but can. But we'll see what actually happens in the regular season. But that's the one thing I kind of noticed, was that Joe Johnson is fading a little bit, and I kind of predicted that. But the Nets looked good, and I think that they're going to do really well this season. I'm predicting that they're going to win 56 to 62 games next season, and that's a little bit of maybe a bold prediction. I don't know. But last year I said that they would win 48 to 52 games, and I believe they won 49. Yeah, I believe they won 49 games last season, and I said they win 48 to 52. So I was right. And so this year I'm saying they're going to win 56 to 62, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right there too. I also think they're going to be the 2 seed. And I know there's a lot of experts and stuff saying, oh, the Nets, they're going to be the 4th best team, the Bulls are better, the Pacers are better. Look, there to me is too many weapons and good solid players on the Nets for them to not be this 2 seed. I understand Jason Kidd is going to rest Paul Pierce and Garnett, some of the older players here and there. But even if Paul Pierce and Garnett are resting, let's say they're both resting, you still have Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, Brook Lopez in the starting lineup. The same big 3 who were on the team last year when they won 48 games. Excuse me, 49 games. They won 49 games with those 3 guys. And let's be honest, the Nets last season really consisted mostly of those 3 guys. The bench helped out a little bit, but really, when Darren Williams, Lopez, and Johnson all played well, the Nets won. They won 49 games with those 3 guys. Now you're adding Paul Pierce. Oh, my goodness. The Italian in me got rid of the camera. Excuse me. Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry off the bench, Andre Kirilenko off the bench, Andre Blatch off the bench, and people are not expecting him to win at least 7 or 8 more games. That's all I'm saying. He only won 7 or 8 more games because of those added players. I think that's reasonable, and I don't see the Bulls winning more than 55 games. I don't see the Pacers winning more than 52. I don't see the Knicks winning more than maybe 50. Because, look, the Bulls are a great grinding, hard-nosed team, but you don't know what Derrick Rose is really going to give you. Yes, he looks very good in the preseason, but it's different when you're in the regular season because of his ACL injury. And I think the Pacers, they're a better team, but to me, they're still not that... I mean, the Pacers are an interesting team. Everyone thinks they're the greatest team ever. Personally, I think that they're just a good team that matches up well against the Heat because they've got great size in the front court. But, I don't know how great that team is. I think they are definitely a top 4 team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were like the 2 seed or something like that. But I just think that they're not as good as everyone thinks they are, and I think people are, making them better because they played so well against the Heat. I think because they played so great against the Heat, in people's minds, we're personifying them as this great team, like the top-notch team, because they played well against a top-notch team. I just think they matched up well against them because, if I'm not mistaken, the Nets went 3-1 against the Pacers. Or they went 2-2. Either they split went 3-1 or 2-2. And, no one's saying anything about the Nets being that great of a team because it's against the Pacers, because, the Nets also got blown the crap out by the Heat. So, that's why I think people kind of really put the Pacers up high. I don't. I look at this objectively. I think every team in the Eastern Conference can beat the Pacers in a 7-game series. They're not a top-notch team. Yet, I don't believe every team in the Eastern Conference could beat the Bulls, Nets, or Heat. That's the way I look at it. So I think the Pacers are going to be the 4 seed. I think the East is going to go Miami, Brooklyn, Chicago, Indiana, New York. And then 6 through 8 is going to be God knows what. Any team can be a wild card in the East. The Pistons, I like the Pistons with what they did with Josh Smith. Obviously the Bucks can always be there. Watch out for the Cavaliers with Kyrie, and if Andrew Bynum plays. I think it's safe to say every team in the East has a shot at somehow making the playoffs. Every team. even the crappy Bobcats, because they got Al Jefferson, who might help them out a lot. Every team except for, I think, the Magic. I believe the Magic and probably the 76ers are the only two teams I would probably not expect to make the playoffs. Even the Celtics, I think, have a shot. Because I think the Celtics actually have a pretty solid team. Because they got solid players in that deal, just not stars. But really the East, I'm just saying that I don't think the Pacers are going to be the top of it. I think the Nets are going to be the 2 seed. But they could be the 4 seed. I could be wrong there. But I'm just expecting them to win 56 to 62 games. In the West, that's another toss-up. I'm thinking in the West that there's one thing that I think will happen, and I think the Rockets, like the Pacers, are not going to be as good as we all think they are. Because D12's most overrated player in the game. And because of that, I think that the Rockets are still going to make the playoffs and still going to be one of the better teams. I don't see them higher than the 4 seed either. Personally, I don't see them better than the Clippers. I don't see them better than the Thunder, and I don't see them better than the Spurs. And personally, I don't know if they could get out of the first round against whoever they're going to play as the 5th seed. Which brings me to 2 wildcard teams that I'm going to say are going to make the playoffs in the West. And that is D12's old team, the Lakers, because I think that you should never count out Kobe Bryant. Not to mention that Pau Gasol, I think, seems to be a little bit more rejuvenated with Dwight, the overrated player, out of the way. And they got some good young talent on that team. Xavier Henry had a really good game for them, and he looked really sharp. And, just never count out the Lakers. And I also think the Mavericks are going to make the playoffs in the West. After falling just short last season, Jose Calderon as the point guard, Monte Ellis, healthy Dirk Nowitzki. They have Samuel Dallenberg as their center. It's always great to see an actual Seton Hall player in the NBA. That's really cool. He's going to provide that toughness that they didn't have in the front court. They still got Vince Carter off the bench. Devin Harris is on that team now. I think that they're going to be pretty good. I don't think they're going to be a top-notch team in the West, but I think the Mavericks are definitely capable of making the playoffs, maybe as the 7th or 6th seed. I think the Grizzlies are going to slide. I don't think they're going to be as good of a team as they were last season. Without Lionel Hollins, who knows? I think Marc Gasol is overrated. Before I didn't think so, but I believe on ESPN's top, they ranked the players. He was like in the top 20, and I couldn't believe that. Marc Gasol is not a top 20 player in the league. To me, he's barely a top 5 center. How is he a top 20 player? I don't know. But that countdown itself really got me mad. I think there's a lot of illogical things on that countdown. Like Russell Westbrook is considered a top 5 player. I laughed at that. Vince Carter was like 151. People like Jared Dudley was ahead of Vince Carter. I'm sorry. Even if you think that I'm extremely biased with Vince Carter, how could Jared Dudley be better than Vince Carter? Shannon Brown, I think, could have been ahead of Vince Carter, too. Maybe that could have been wrong. I'm not sure on that. But I know Jared Dudley was, and J.J. Redick was, too. And J.J., I'm not going to crap on him too much because he has done better, but I still don't think he's better than Vince Carter. That, to me, is like shows you the stupidity of those rankings. And the highest net was Darren Williams, which to me is bull. I think Lopez should be higher than Williams of all the nets. Though Lopez was, I think, 20-something. I don't remember. But, whatever. I'm not going to get caught up on the ESPN rankings of the players because it's just stupid. I don't feel like anybody in this world seems to look at basketball in a logical light other than me because everyone in this world is stupid but me. And, the 10, 15 people who actually watch my videos. You guys aren't stupid. You guys are smart. But anyway, we'll see what happens with this season. Season starts Wednesday. The Nets play the Cavaliers, and then they will play the Heat. And then by next week, I'll have another video for you guys, and I'll analyze the Nets and what we actually saw from that. But until then, season's about to get underway. So this is NetsBoy signing off.